Hello and welcome. We will be starting in approximately 3 minutes. Feel free to introduce yourself through the Zoom chat, and we will be getting into our amazing topic about the localization workspace very shortly. Quick reminder to practice Safe Harbor. We might share some exciting new features today, so let's just make sure to keep everything compliant with those best practices. And now to the good stuff. I am thrilled to introduce our amazing speakers, Vicky, Lena, and Sam. I am going to go ahead and let y'all introduce yourselves as we get into the localization workspace.
Hi, everybody. You've just already heard a little bit from me. You'll be hearing a little bit more. My name is Vicky. I'm an outbound product manager. I sit on the platform team, but I support globalization and accessibility.
Hello, everyone. I'm Liana Solomon. I am looking after globalization and accessibility on our platform and primarily focus on capabilities of and usability of our multilingual users.
Hi everyone, I'm Sam Smith. I'm based out of Dublin and I'm an inbound product manager for the platform focusing on globalization.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We're really excited to be talking to you a little bit about the localization workspace and be hopefully teaching you something new and introducing you to parts of the product that you're not familiar with and that you learn a little bit about the localization workspace today. So to just walk through what we'll be covering today, we'll be covering the localization platform localization globalization. We'll talk a bit about translation of workflows and the localization workspace, and you even get to see a demo today. So before we get started, I know that I had asked a little question about how long have you been on the platform, but now Sharon's going to launch a poll for us about how familiar you are with the localization workspace from a scale of 1 to 5. Just select whatever feels natural to you, and there's no embarrassment in this. There's no names attached, but we always like to know where our audience is at before we get started. I'm really curious to see. Oh, wow, we have some great participation. We have a couple of people here who could be, helping us out, presenting alongside us. Love to see that, but I hope you learned something new. And I see a lot of people who are unfamiliar or kind of unsure, and that is perfect. This is for you. So we hope you gain value from this session. Right. So before we go ahead and get launched into our localization workspace, I'll go over a bit of the terms just to make sure that it's easy for everyone to understand. So first is internationalization. So internationalization is the process of generalizing a product so that it can run in multiple languages and in cultural conversations without the need for redesign. So, a lot of us work for international organizations, and our platform needs to be in different languages. So this is what software engineers do. And you'll see right next to internationalization, the shorthand. So I18 is the shorthand for internationalization. So moving on down to localization. Localization is the actual process of converting software or products from one language into another language. So this is what some vendors do and what our workspace does, which we'll learn a lot more about. And then translation, T9 N is the actual act of translating text into another languages. So this is what machines do and linguists do that, also do the checking of ensuring that it is appropriate. Because not all things, if we're multilingual speakers here, directly translate right over. So translation. And globalization is the way that companies plan and implement strategies to be competitive around the world. So this is what organizations and businesses do to ensure that they meet all of their customers in different languages. So those are some terms that you're going to be hearing a few times throughout today's session. Awesome. So let's go ahead and take a look at our localized ServiceNow portal. So we're all pretty familiar with this here. And down here, this you'll notice is in a different language. So this is how an English versus a non-English portal looks like and what it means to have a localized interface. And so every customer customizes this page. And here at ServiceNow, we want to focus on usability. So every customer has building blocks that are different from one another that service their individual needs. And it all needs to be translated piece by piece. So the localization framework and workspace helps with that. So the ServiceNow globalization team that's with you today is focused on that user experience. So we don't emphasize the building blocks really, but what rather how you can do your work in your native language, and we help our customers with the approach in doing this as well. So with our tools, we can translate the customer user interface and ensure usability. And so I'd love to introduce and bring in my wonderful globalization leader here, Leanna, and she's going to talk to us a little bit more about all of the localization process and the framework. So handing it over to you, Leanna.
Thank you, Vicky. As many of you know, ServiceNow is global at the source, and globalization and internationalization and localization readiness are built into the product and the platform. And all of this is with the goal to empower customers, users to be as productive and efficient in their native language as their English counterparts. The problem that often customers run into is that just having UI localized is clearly not enough. And that's what we provide out of the box. What customers need to also do is translate the content that they are usually creating in English into other languages that they support and deploy on the platform. So what we addressed back at Orlando is the automation of the process when customers need to merge the experiences to create an environment for their users in order to be as productive as they need to be. So they can go live and launch products and extend ServiceNow platform across their global markets. So we can go into a little bit of technical bit here in the next slide. And before I do, we can start a poll.
I think this question just says, how often do you submit content for translation?
Oh, fantastic spread. But for those of you who never submitted content translations, you are here for a treat because we'll explain how now we can offer you really amazing automation to do that if you're going into global markets. So on the next slide, we will talk about language packs. For those who are veterans with ServiceNow, you probably know that language packs is what you install in order to support a language. It gets installed after internationalization plugin just to make sure that the platform is ready to be translated. And then we provide in those language packs the UI for the platform and all the products that we offer. But then it's really not enough to create multilingual user experience. And we introduced Localization Workspace back in Orlando. If you go to the next slide, you can see what a comparison UI looks like. So we listen to our customers, and what they need to do is they take the English content and translate it into whatever languages they support. And this UI offers them an ability to not only see side by side the English version and the translated version, but also lock the translated version of that they prefer. So next time they translate changes in that specific content, they will not need to be retranslating everything, which saves customers the cost. But still, there is not enough automation for customers who have really big content deployments across the platform, as well as multiple languages that they support. They really need automation to manage translated customer content And often it's a significant burden on the platform team who is tasked with requesting translations through the workflows that customers create. And that hinders their ability to develop and expand. In other words, the system that we currently had was not scalable. And so to address that bottleneck, we launched Localization Workspace in May this year. So Localization Workspace introduces automation, scale, and speed to the management of customer content translation. It is built on top of localization framework, where customers configure the workflows for translation. They assign different vendors to various languages, content types, and they create rules how the content that comes back then gets approved and published on their instances across the platform. Localization Workspace is available from Yokohama release, and it is added to the instances or to the ability for the pro and enterprise customers to add it to their instance installation. Primarily, we're focusing on customers who have very complex deployments of our platform and content to help them automate the process of requesting translations. So, localization framework supports content types and translation providers and built-in workflows. But Localization Workspace allows more control, and it supports also powerful and user-friendly interface to track not just the status of the localization translations, but also assign and manage various content types from one place. So on the next slide, you can see the difference between localization framework is the first three bullet points, and what Localization Workspace adds to the experience. And we can, before I go into detail on this slide, we have another poll for you.
We should be launching the how do you currently manage the localization of your content in the ServiceNow platform?
For those who do manage localization and translate content. Yes, and that's what we hear from a lot of customers, that there's a lot of manual work and spreadsheets that require them to include or push the translated content into our platform. So for that, Localization Workspace could be a really good option because we added automation on top of localization framework. So in addition to all the powerful features of the framework, Localization Workspace is more business friendly, and it empowers HR, IT, or knowledge base managers to localize the content themselves. They don't need to be reliant on admins and developers as much. It also offers end-to-end automation, which is reducing the manual effort and operational complexity for the business owners and the content managers. You can have unified experience where everything, like in a command center, is centralized on the dashboards and gives you visibility, control, and convenience in one single interface. It also adds visibility into your potential budget and process, where your localization process is currently in per language or per content type, as well as various other dashboards and statistics about your translation experience. And it also adds scalability and speed. It lets customers scale localization as fast as they're scaling content. And if we go to the next slide, you see the side-by-side comparison of localization framework and localization workspace, where you can see that we are transforming the process of translation and requesting those translations from a technical bottleneck into a business-owned automated process, making it possible for customers to deliver high quality, localized end-to-end digital experience at scale on the ServiceNow platform. And to show you how it's all happening in an instance, Sam is going to show a demo.
Thank you, Leona. So, yeah, I'm going to show a demo, but before getting into the demo, I would like to set the stage for what you're about to see. So, the demo focuses on the persona of a content manager who needs to get some email templates translated into Dutch for their Dutch-speaking colleagues that work in their company. The demo shows how easy it is for a content owner to submit the content for translation through Localization Workspace, and how easy it is to implement the translated content once it comes back from the translation process. You'll also see that the demo showcases a couple of key features that were introduced when we first launched the app, which assist with tracking spend and planning other translation activities. It also showcases how the localization workspace removes many unnecessary manual tasks. In the demo, you will also see that the content is submitted for machine translation. And the reason I'm highlighting this fact is because if any of you are using the localization framework at the moment, it means that with Localization Workspace, you can still choose your own existing translation workflows that have already been set up in the framework. No additional configuration is required. And with that, Vicky, you can play the demo.
Welcome to the Localization Workspace. This is the home screen, which is empty at the moment. From here, you can submit translation requests by clicking on the Request Translation button. The home screen also serves as a central dashboard to track submitted translation requests and get high-level information, such as the number of words per project and the estimated cost, both of which are useful for planning and budget management. Let's click on the Request Translation button to get started. This is the translation request modal, and it divides the request process into 4 simple steps. With any request, we need to give it a short, clear title. So I want to request the translation of email templates into Dutch. What we need to do next is select a target language. So in our example, this will be Dutch, but we can select more than one language if needed. We then need to choose a translation provider. And what the translation provider will do is automatically assign the content that we choose later to the correct workflow. These workflows will have already been pre-configured in the localization framework. And the advantage here over the localization framework is that when we select a translation provider, the content is automatically added to the workflow. In our example, our content is needed as soon as possible, so we will select machine translation. Now I need to choose the content type and items to be translated, so we'll click on Next. For our project, we said that we needed to translate email templates, so we will go ahead and select Email Template Configuration. The Localization Workspace allows you to create projects for more than one content type if needed. Now that we've selected email templates, we can click on Next. By default, all content items with a translation status of untranslated or partially translated are available for translation. So what we will do now is select the different items that we would like to submit for translation and then click on Next. Here we see another great feature of the Localization Workspace, and that is the Estimates Summary. What this does is that it shows the estimates for the word count plus the estimated cost of the job. And what this allows us to do is to track spend, plan future localization activities, and keep costs within budget. Once you've reviewed the information and are happy with the cost estimate, click Submit to submit the translation request. When the translation request has been submitted, you're taken back to the home screen where the translation request will appear on the dashboard. On the dashboard, on the right, there's a link to a localization framework project. And this is where the localization workspace is very intelligent because it saves requesters a lot of time. The localization workspace takes all of the different items that we have requested for translation, groups them together, and creates a project in the localization framework so that they can be picked up by the localization fulfiller to start the translation process. This means that through Localization Workspace, requesters do not have to manually create projects and add content items to them one by one. The workspace takes care of all of the manual, time-consuming tasks. Once the translation cycle of the email templates is complete, all of the items that have been submitted as part of our translation request have now been published automatically and are ready for use in the Dutch market.
Yeah, just a recap of what we have just seen. Before we actually get into that, I think we have another poll coming up.
Yes, we have our poll for how familiar are you with the localization workspace on a scale of 1 to 5, running now. So we've got a few people learning about this sort of for that first time. Some have heard of it but not used it and got a general idea of it. Nobody's really saying we understand this strongly. So Sam, you've got a good audience to present this for.
So with the localization workspace, what we've seen is that compared to the localization framework, for those who use it, we've seen how easy it is to use it for the end-to-end translation process, and how it also removes a lot of the manual steps that you currently have to go through if you're using the framework. We've also seen the introduction of additional features such as request summaries, cost estimates, and those assist with planning and budget management, which enables people to integrate a strategic localization program into your content creation process. That's the end of the demo, and we would love to keep in touch, keep in contact. As you can see on the screen, we have a QR code. We have a link to our documentation, and you can also reach out to us directly via email, g11n@servicenow.com. Lena and I would be more than happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Shall we go through some of the Q&A and see if we can answer a few of those live? Taking a look at these, we've got a question around are all Nordic languages except for Danish available as a translation? Or I think saying all is very inclusive, but do we know some of those languages that are able to be translated?
So we do have Nordic languages available except Danish, Swedish and Finnish. But whatever we provide out of the box is not a limitation. Our customers can self-localize our platform in any language or any alphabet.
Excellent, thank you. And then, so by localization workspace, can we auto-translate a customer's language? Or do we still need to create that translation for each link or catalog item or basically each record as it goes?
I can take this one. I was actually going to reply to this before the demo started. So I think the demo may have answered that actual question where they no longer have to do it link by link, record by record. It's all going to be grouped together. Yeah.
Awesome. And then can we buy this without having to buy the pro license separately? My default is normally to say talk to your account rep specifically, but is that the correct answer?
Absolutely. This is the correct answer because it's pro, it's enterprise, but based on what you already have and the licenses you have, it might come with it as well. So absolutely correct, Sharon. Thanks.
All right. And then next we've got is localization a built-in platform feature, which means it doesn't require additional subscription? This sort of ties in with that last one that was asked.
And the answer is no, no additional subscription is required. Internationalization plugin, as well as all the languages we provide out of the box, come with your installation. You can install it all for free. Same with localization framework. It is available to all customers. And a localization workspace, when you install it, it does not consume your licenses either. So it's part of the implementation.
That is beautiful, especially as we support so many global companies. Perfect. Do we require additional licenses? This is sort of same path. Gonna say that's already answered. And then Sam, we've got a follow-up from above. ServiceNow changed the name of a label on EC Pro, and they got an upgrade in English, but the language changed in English, but it didn't change in their Spanish. They are trying to see if it's just because they had already installed that language pack prior to ServiceNow making the change. I think sort of the follow-up for that question is do they have to do something to make those updates afterwards? Like, how do you keep that in sync as changes happen?
So that is a follow-up. So I did ask that person to I replied to one of the original questions. I just wanted clarification. So the original question was, why can we not update language packs over time? They submitted a ticket a while back, and ServiceNow updated the text, and the language packs, they were not updated in the upgrades. That was the original question, which I had asked for extra clarification for. And it seems that their understanding is correct whenever they clarified it.
Okay. All right. Next we've got, is there a option for manual review post the machine translation if an organization wants to have that human still in the loop prior to it going and actually being out there?
Yes, that's all. That can be all set up within the localization framework translation workflows in there. So you can have content 100% machine translated with no human. You can set up the translation workflow to be machine translated, post edited by human, and then published. So that is possible within the localization framework translation workflow settings.
And also to add to it real quick, you can control some of it that you cannot control maybe with workflow with business rules as well. And I would like to suggest you go to the community where we have not only a lot of tips and tricks and suggestions how to do specific things, but also offer code that you can use at your own risk. But at least you can start.
All right, that's perfect. Would one of you possibly be able to drop the link to that community place in our chat? That would be very helpful for our audience. And then next is a question about translation or localization and update sets. They are wondering if they're correct in saying that you can't add them to an update set, which means you have to perform localization directly in the instance where you want it, such as production.
Okay, I can take this one. So with Localization Workspace, you will be able to automate a lot of this and do move this into production through an update set, or with Localization Workspace, it's automated. You do not have to involve developers.
Marvelous. And then there is a question of how does what we were looking at today work with dynamic translation? That's a nice big open-ended question.
The localization framework works with dynamic translation, which is a method of doing a translation where you still have to have the translation provider. Sam was talking about machine translation, which means you can connect the workspace through framework to Google Translate, Microsoft Azure, or any other machine translation engine to do the translation. And it will see your connection to dynamic translation if you already have it and use it based on your workflows. And you can configure it in a different way as well to add languages, etc. But it does support machine translation through dynamic translation.
Excellent. And we got a nice technical question of if a knowledge article is translated, then does it create a new number to the translated article? Or like, how does that connect?
Yeah, the English source version will have its own will have a version number, and the translated version of that English version will have its own version number as well.
And are the articles linked somehow in the system to where you can, like,
Yeah,
if you're on one, you can easily get to the other?
yes. Yeah, it will appear as translated version of the article. There is a little tab that you can find within the knowledge base articles, and it's available. The translated versions will be available. They will just have a different number.
Thank you. And I think we may have already answered this, but just in case, does localization translate catalog items as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, the workspace. Yeah, I don't know if you again in the demo. I think it went very quickly, but there is in my instance I had catalog items available, so it would have come up as an option for translation.
And it's based on artifacts. So in the documentation, we have a list of all artifacts that supports out of the box. But when you go to the community, we also offer a lot of other artifacts there as POC. So you can take the code, adapt it to your use case, and use it as the artifact for specific content types that you need to address.
Perfect. And one last question. Feel free, if you have more, throw them in our Q&A as we're going through. Actually, here comes more. But how has localization been sped up with the addition of Now Assist? Have you seen instances where those are combining and working well?
So there's a difference between AI tools and customer content. Now Assist creates dynamic content. It's more conversational interaction that you go through. What we are addressing here is the static content that customers need to translate at scale, and there are huge volumes of it, like knowledge base articles, etc. So where it has a similar connection is that dynamic translation can be used for both. So Now Assist uses various providers of translation, LLMs, that we offer customers to use. And so the translation is dynamic. It's not recorded anywhere per se. With the content is usually more focused on specific structured content where customers require more scrutiny over how it's translated. Is it a culturally fit for specific market? And the terminology, the style, and usually linguists take a look at it and validate that it's correct.
Marvelous. And another question around knowledge blocks. They used to be able to be localized, so users in different localizations could have their own articles, but keep the same knowledge base number. So has that changed with the way that the dynamic translation is creating that second linked article?
So the structure have not changed much. So the system is still there. You can translate both articles and knowledge blocks as well with localization framework and therefore localization workspace. There are some nuances, but we have information on the community specifically addressing knowledge. And if you have additional questions, drop us a line.
Perfect. And I believe our last question is the localization workspace available in PDIs to perform evaluations and proof of concepts?
You can install localization workspace on any environment and use it to create proof of concept, to test your systems, etc. So it's available for
Perfect.
all.
So they would just need to go either through plugins or application manager, get that application installed, and then be able to do that.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So it's an application manager, and it's also in the App Store as well.
Lovely. All right. Thank you so much for our amazing questions. Thank you so much for the very informative presentation. I learned a lot myself about the localization workspace. So Sam, Lena, Vicky, thank you again. As we wrap up, I do want to just remind everybody, while the Platform Academy, in my opinion, is one of the best, we do have several others. Feel free to go to this link or QR code and you can register for our other Academy events. We also have a feedback opportunity. So on our next slide, we've got a QR codes where you can register to give feedback to our platform teams. And what this is it's just a quick form for you to fill out. We will then reach out and see if we can set up a time for a meeting to get your insight and get a better understanding of how you're using the platform, what questions you may have, that type of thing. Next, I do want to remind everybody we have another session coming up Thursday of this week where that is the wrong events. Well, we have one Thursday. It is going to be around mobile and how AI and mobile work together. And then we'll also have another session on Tuesday. And then we do want to remind you we've got some amazing resources out there for Impact Community, our ServiceNow University, and expert services. So thank you again, everybody, for joining us. It was a pleasure to have our presenters. As always, I hope you have a beautiful Tuesday and take care.